The member for Fadden.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to make a few brief comments on the changes being proposed in the Customs Amendment Anti-Dumping Improvements Bill 2011. I make some comments in the hope that the bill will indeed seek to improve the current regime. Yet I stand here to make some comments with the knowledge that, in one hand, the Labor administration is hoping to improve business through strengthening provisions within anti-dumping and providing some safeguards and some actions on the minister. Yet at the same time, and indeed the same breath, the government is seeking to make it instrumentally difficult for business through implementing a carbon tax, the only economy-wide carbon tax in the world being considered and implemented. Indeed, the words of the Productivity Commission in their latest report. You would have thought, if a government comes to the dispatch box to look at issues that affect business, in this case to stop the illegal dumping at a lower price, that there would be a degree of consistency in the values and the principles by which they present legislation. And that consistency would be concerning what makes it easier for business. But the only consistency we've seen so far is the impost in business. Even the AIG Group, Australian Industry Group, is now looking at Labor's so-called Fair Work Bill and saying, you know what, it is neither fair nor leading to work. The carbon tax is now being unilaterally dispelled as a disaster right across the nation in terms of its anti-business stance and affecting the basic economics as well as business confidence and manufacturing. So many things this government does is harming business that it's hard to see a narrative about how they seek to help. So it's my hope that indeed this bill will seek to make some improvements, and we shall be watching with great interest over the coming months and years to ensure that indeed occurs. A company in my electorate, a company called Geldwin, is a company that has been through the mill twice on anti-dumping. The first time it has been found to be unwarranted. Second time, I believe the same will be found. It is hoped that these improvements will ensure that companies like Geldwin can face fairly and squarely the issues and that they can get the ministerial representation they need. But it's also instructed that a company like Geldwin owns brands like Corinthian Doors and Stegbar, is experiencing a downturn in some areas of their business by as much as 20%. 20%! Something like 80% of our homes and offices and buildings contain at least something that Geldwin produces. So if a company like Geldwin is experiencing such a dramatic downturn, it speaks volumes about what is happening in our economy. If I look at the Gold Coast, my electorate, there are three key things, three concerns on people's minds. Number one, the carbon tax and the betrayal of the government and the fact the government won't listen to them. Number two, jobs and the loss of jobs. Number three, the increasing cost of living. And if a company like Geldwin is showing such a downturn, it reinforces, and this time through corporate downturn, it reinforces that people are hurting, the cost of living is increasing, that they're not spending, that they're worried about their jobs, and the carbon tax is simply exacerbating a difficult situation. All I ask for in this place, all we want from this government is consistency, and the carbon tax shows there is none of that. I think we all agree the basic purpose of anti-dumping is to allow countries to take action against foreign manufacturers who seek to export a product to come into Australia at a price which is lower than the price it charges at its home market and or its costs of production. Whilst there is more technicalities involved in that, including shipping, including the averaging of the cost of production if production is across multiple sites, the intent is to stop a major company coming through, exporting into Australia with a loss leader or dumping a product that they can't move that fundamentally affects Australia's manufacturing or local industry. I think we all accept that that makes a range of sense. However, there's a range of issues with the current arrangements and the way they're implemented and administered. I think it's fair to say that there has been considerable frustration at the lack of timeliness and the effectiveness of the processes undertaken within customs and the costs imposed on businesses where they're raising cases or seeking to address cases because of the multinational aspect of their business. Our system is widely regarded as being costly and, for the most part, reasonably unworkable. Perversely, it imposes a greater burden of proof on local industries. And again, it's hoped that these amendments will seek to change that. The introduction of this amendment is certainly a response from Labor to the concerns being raised. Like all things, it takes a long time. Ironically, as opposed to the carbon tax, where 6 or 7 days after the government, once the final numbers are in, the Prime Minister broke her word on there'll be no carbon tax under the government I lead. But when it comes to Australian business and Australian manufacturing, apparently it takes years. Can I say to the government, the irony is not lost on the bulk of Australia's business. It's good to see that pressure from the coalition, I acknowledge Senator Xenophon, industrial bodies and individual businesses and indeed trade unions have also been saying to the government there needs to be a range of responses to deal with the issues. These reforms will seek to bring a range of amendments, including a time limit of 30 days on ministerial decision-making, which is nice, widening the range of factors available for consideration in the determination of material injury, and of course expanding the list of subsidies against which Australian industries can apply for countervailing duties. On the whole, these changes would appear to be sensible and practical, but like all things, time will tell whether they are indeed workable, and indeed time will tell whether the ministerial intervention is done appropriately, logically and sensibly. Most seem to interpret the bill as a reasonably positive move that may help to address some of the inherent flaws in the way that business is currently done and the way anti-dumping is currently looked at. The members of the Coalition's Anti-Dumping Task Force, and I certainly acknowledge the Honourable John Cobb MP, Senator the Honourable Richard Colbeck, my good friend Michael Keenan MP sitting at the desk now, and of course the Shadow Minister Sophie Mirabella MP, have done a great job in consistently engaging with stakeholders and getting advice from business and industry associations, and the general feel is a range of tacit support. We believe these moves are in the interests of the nation. Let's wait and see how they go. It is our hope that these moves will improve the situation for business, hence the wide-ranging support we're giving to them. I personally hope that these moves will assist companies like Gelwin in my electorate, who have been at the receiving end of a range of cases, that will assist them to actually defend themselves appropriately, properly and judiciously. And I welcome the bill's introduction to the House.